As I'm sure you know by now, a court has struck down the convicted felon's unilaterally imposed tariffs as being illegal. Now, it's not all the tariffs, it's just his Liberation Day tariffs, the ones that he imposed pursuant to emergency powers that some law passed by Congress Trump thinks gave him authority to impose these massive tariffs. There's other tariffs under other statutory provisions that are allowed to remain in place, but the bulk of his tariffs were passed, under this emergency grant of authority from Congress. Those have all been struck down. Now, there's a couple of points that I want to make about this. So let me read a little bit of an article here because it says some things that I think need to be addressed. This particular article is in the New York Post. I will post a link in the video description below. A federal court shot down most of President Trump's wide-reaching tariffs Monday, ruling the commander-in-chief exceeded his authority when he plowed ahead with one of his signature policies. Okay, let me stop right there because they said something here that really annoys the shit out of me. They referred to him as commander-in-chief. What the hell does that have to do with anything here? I see this all the time. Political pundits refer to the president, no matter who it is. This is not a Trump-only thing. They refer to the president all the time as commander-in-chief. He's commander-in-chief of the military. He's not the commander-in-chief of you and I. He's not the commander-in-chief of the government. He's commander-in-chief of the military. This is what annoys me. This is a story about tariffs. He did not impose tariffs as commander-in-chief. This is not a military action. So referring to him as commander-in-chief makes no sense whatsoever here. But they do it all the time. It's just one of those things that constitutionally, legally, this makes no sense. It pisses me off, but, people do that all the time. Okay, the three-judge panel at the Court of International Trade in Manhattan assailed Trump's actions against other countries across the globe as contrary to law, despite the president claiming emergency powers under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act allowed him to impose the controversial duties. The court stated that Congress is typically responsible for issuing tariffs, not the president alone, and that Trump's rationale for the exception to the rule didn't meet the Emergency Act threshold to act unilaterally. One more quick paragraph. This is from the opinion, quote, "The president's assertion of tariff-making authority in the instant case, unbounded as it is by any limitation in duration or scope, exceeds any tariff authority delegated to the president under the IEEPA." Now, this is what I want to deal with. This idea that Congress delegated to the president authority to impose tariffs. This usurpation or this delegation of authority by Congress to the president over many decades, this has been a long ongoing problem. I don't know that made any sense. I need more coffee. Long-standing, ongoing problem. That sounds better. This didn't just start happening under Trump. This has been going on for a very long time, where Congress, they don't want to they don't want to really do their job. Most members of Congress just want to be members of Congress, and they don't really want to do a lot of work. They don't show up for work a whole hell of a lot. They don't want to put in the hours. They certainly don't want to cast controversial votes or make any tough decisions. So what they do is they just delegate authority to the president. Oh, you go ahead and do that. If you think there's an emergency, you take whatever steps you want. All right, so they passed a law like this. I think it was back in the 70s, this IEEPA law that Trump is citing. The problem for Trump is that law doesn't say anything about tariffs. All right, so no other president has ever attempted to use that law to impose tariffs. And that's what the court says here. This law that you're citing doesn't say shit about giving you the authority that you claim you have here. But to the broader question, this is what I want to deal with. To the broader question, the broader issue of Congress delegating authority to the president, that is part of the reason we're in the situation that we are now, where we have a corrupt, authoritarian thug president exercising all kinds of authority that the Constitution doesn't give him. Now, he's just outright seizing power he doesn't have, but he's also exercising authority that he doesn't rightly have under the Constitution, but that Congress has given him, or at least arguably given him. And that's what's at issue here. He's arguing that this law gives him this authority. The court just said, no, it doesn't. But the problem stems from Congress doing anything like this in the first place. So the court said, it talked about typically Congress is responsible for tariffs, not the president alone. What typically? Typically as a result of practice, illegal practice, but the Constitution is very clear. Article 1 of the Constitution makes very clear. Only Congress has authority to pass tariffs. The president has zero authority to impose tariffs on his own. None. He has no more authority to impose tariffs on imported goods than he does to impose taxes on the American people. Those are both powers of Congress, and Congress alone. The president has no authority. And so, I mean, I'm glad that this 3-judge panel, by the way, it was 2 Republican appointees and 1 Democrat appointee. We had a Reagan appointee, an Obama, and a Trump appointee, and they ruled unanimously against Trump in this instance. But I take issue with this idea that typically the president doesn't have this authority. No, the president doesn't have this authority, period. And that's the problem. Congress, and the way they get around this, the problem is, I know I'm kind of stuttering, didn't think this out too well in how I was going to present this. But what Congress does is it passes a law delegating authority, in a sense, to the president to impose tariffs if certain conditions are met. Now, constitutionally, Congress cannot delegate its authority. Congress cannot just give away its authority to another branch of government. No branch of government can give away its authority to another branch of government. That in and of itself would be unconstitutional. That in and of itself would be a violation of separation of powers. The courts can't say, you know what? Hey, Congress, we're going to delegate to you the power to try criminal cases. Or we're going to give the president the power to try criminal cases. No, you can't do that. And Congress cannot say to the president, you know what? We don't really want to exercise this tariff power. We're just going to give it over to you. We're going to delegate our Article 1 power to impose tariffs. We're going to give that to you. You have that power from now on. Okay, Congress cannot do that. That's flatly illegal and unconstitutional. The way the courts have allowed them to get away with this is they say, oh, well, it's not really a total delegation. They say the president can impose tariffs under these certain circumstances. So really, it's Congress authorizing the tariffs. We're just making the decision, giving the decision to the president to determine whether those conditions preceding to imposition of tariffs are in effect. We're giving that to the president to make that determination, but it's we, the Congress, who are actually imposing the tariffs. So that's how this, they get around. That's how the courts have justified allowing Congress to do that. But that's not the way it's supposed to work. See, so the reason we have this runaway authoritarian thug criminal president is because both of the other branches of government have failed to do their jobs over many, many decades. Congress giving away its authority, and the courts allowing Congress to give away its authority. The way this is supposed to happen is if the president thinks there's a situation some sort of an emergency situation that requires the imposition of tariffs, then the president goes to Congress and says, hey, here's this emergency. I need you to pass these tariffs. That's the way it's supposed to work. Then Congress debates whether or not we should pass tariffs, and it's up to them. The only role that the president has is signing or vetoing a bill passed by Congress to impose tariffs. His job is to enforce the tariffs that have been passed by Congress, just like any other freaking law. Congress passes the law, the president enforces it, just like any other tax, which is what tariffs are. They're taxes. Congress passes the tax, the IRS, which is in the executive branch, enforces the tax code passed by Congress. So that's the way it's supposed to happen. But the courts have allowed Congress to say, hey, we don't really want to do any of this work. This is too tough. We're just going to say, hey, if you think there's an emergency, you go ahead and you just impose tariffs. We don't want you coming to us, because then we're going to have to come to Washington, and we might be back home at a friggin' barbecue or a fundraiser. We don't want to do that. So you just do it because we don't want to do the work. And the courts have allowed Congress to get away with that bullshit. And now we're in a situation with an authoritarian thug president taking advantage of that. Now, of course, since it's Trump, he goes far beyond the plain wording of the statute to claim authority that the statute doesn't actually give him. But the broader problem is that Congress has done this time and time again on so many issues. And I guarantee you, this is not the only time we're going to see this president claiming emergency powers that he says were authorized by Congress. He's going to cite some law to do some illegal thing, and he's going to violate the law and the Constitution in the process, and he's going to do great damage, and it's going to take months to wind its way through the courts. And then we'll have to wait and see if the courts do the right thing. The courts that did the wrong thing for decades in allowing Congress to do this. And do you have any faith in this Supreme Court not to go along with some of Donald Trump's illegal power grabs? Now, this is a 3-judge panel. Trump is going to appeal this. He could appeal it to the full court. He can appeal, he could appeal it up the chain. Ultimately, this is probably going to end up at the Supreme Court. Doesn't have to. They don't have to take the case. But they probably will. This is probably going to end up at the Supreme Court. And do you have any faith? I don't have faith on this particular issue. There's other issues that I'm confident the court will rule against Trump on. This is not one of them. I don't know how they're going to come out on this. So anyways, I just wanted to make that point. That Congress, this is just another example of how Congress and the courts are responsible for this situation, for making it easy for an authoritarian thug criminal president who has no respect for the rule of law or the Constitution to seize power. They have made it easy for him to do this. A couple more things from this article. This is, quote, "This judicial coup is out of control." This is from a post on Twitter by Stephen Miller. Judicial coup. That's what he calls this ruling, shooting down, blocking Trump's illegal imposition of tariffs. So the president, who is actually the one, if there's a coup going on, first of all, Trump did a literal freaking coup on January 6th. But if there's a coup in this situation being perpetrated by one branch of government, it's the president, who is attempting to illegally seize Article 1 authority from Congress and impose tariffs unilaterally. That is a violation of separation of powers. That is one branch of government trying to steal the power from another branch of government. If there's anyone committing a coup here, it's Donald freaking Trump. Of course, this I'm sure will be the talking point all across Fox News because this feeds their narrative. They like to talk about media narratives. These morons. Everything that they accuse the other side of doing, it's what they themselves do. So they have these narratives that they fit every little story that comes out into their broader narrative. And one of their narratives is, the courts are out of control. It's a judicial coup. They throw that term around all the time. And so the Fox News audience, the mindless drones of the Trump cult, are already primed to believe this. All of these people calling themselves constitutionalists think it's a judicial coup if the court blocks a president from illegally seizing powers of Congress. But that's where we are. A couple more quick things here. Trump has used the weight of tariffs as a strategy to broker new trade deals with other countries that would be more beneficial to the U.S. So far, he's negotiated blah, 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 blah. I see it written up this way a lot. Stop. I wish, and this is the New York Post, so it's not the, this is already a Trump-friendly publication, but they all do this. They say, they push the White House's, Trump's stated reasons for the tariffs as if those are the real reasons. When we all know that negotiating favorable trade deals for the United States is not the purpose of these tariffs. The purpose of these tariffs is for Donald Trump to empower himself. It's to bully other nations for a variety of reasons, and more importantly, to extort money from them. That's what it's about, to line his own friggin' pockets. Just the other day, I gave you a recent example of Trump using the threat of tariffs, or the imposition of tariffs, and the promise maybe of walking back those tariffs, removing those tariffs against Vietnam, to force Vietnam to violate their own laws and fast track a Trump organization $1.5 billion golf club friggin' monstrosity, the hotels and golf courses, and $1.5 billion. That was part of the negotiation. So Donald Trump puts tariffs on other countries, decimating their economy, and says, hey, I would look favorably upon your request to remove these tariffs if you approve my golf course. And so that's what they did. And they violated their own laws in order to approve Donald Trump's $1.5 billion project in Vietnam. I think he's got two different ones in Vietnam. They're extorting him. And that's pretty much what the officials in Vietnam said is the reason that they approved this. So that's the real reason for Trump's tariffs. But, the media never even raises that. Oh, no, you can't say that this is, an extortion scam by the president. No, can't ever say that. The Trump administration quickly filed a notice of appeal that could likely lead all the way to the Supreme Court, blah, blah, blah. The White House has insisted that only Congress and not judges can determine the political question on whether the president is allowed to declare emergency duties. Okay, enough with this. Okay, you get the gist, but there's two other things I want to talk about real quick before I go. Follow up on more about Trump's crimes vis-a-vis other countries. Trump's bribery, or Qatar bribing Donald Trump with that $400 million plane. Well, there's new information about that. First of all, it's not a done deal. Here's one headline. Trump's Air Force One deal with Qatar not final despite U.S. claims. And why is it not final? Let me read a little bit here. Qatar is insisting that a memorandum of understanding between Washington and Doha specify that the aircraft's transfer was initiated by the Trump administration and that Qatar is not responsible for any future transfers of the plane's ownership. Did you get that? The aircraft's transfer was initiated by the Trump administration. And Qatar is saying, look, you've been out there lying about this deal, saying that we offered you a plane. That's a lie. We know it. You know it. You demanded this plane from us. And we want a memorandum of understanding before we go through with this deal where you acknowledge that you're the one who demanded this plane. We didn't come to you bribing you. You extorted us. So we've been referring to this as a bribe because that's how it had been reported. It had been reported as if Qatar had approached Trump and said, hey, please be nice to us. We'll give you this plane. No. Other way around. Trump went to Qatar. Hey, if you want me to be nice to you, you better give me a plane. This wasn't the first one of these planes. There was a sister plane, a more opulent plane actually, that was given to Erdogan of Turkey. And Trump loves Erdogan because he's a dictator. And I think what happened is he heard about that and he thought, I want one of those and you're going to give it to me. You want me to give you favorable treatment? Then you better give me one of those planes. If you give one to Turkey, you better damn well give one to me. So looks like that's what was going on. Wasn't a bribe, it was extortion. Okay, so there's that. And then finally, we talked yesterday about this new term that some insiders, it started with some insiders on Wall Street, referring to Trump's behavior, Trump's modus operandi as taco. Trump always chickens out. That's the acronym they use, taco. Trump always chickens out, specifically with respect to these tariffs. Because he threatens them, he doesn't go through with them. Or he imposes them, then he walks them back. Now, I don't know what the new acronym's going to be, but now he imposes tariffs and then the courts block him. So the point of all of that is nobody believes this friggin' guy. He's exercising all this authority. One, he doesn't have it. The courts are more and more slapping him down, blocking these actions that he's taking. But also, he's so friggin' all over the place, imposing them, not imposing them, threatening them, walking them back. So nobody believes him. Nobody takes him seriously. And so they're using this as a way to say, look, let's be a little more calm. Don't take this MFer at his word. Don't believe anything he says. Taco. He always chickens out. So that's what they tell themselves to keep themselves calm. And to that end, I have a new product for those of you who are interested in the Romano Report shop. And here it is, new mug, Trump taco mug. So there you have it. You got Trump and a chicken, and you got the acronym taco. Now this chicken, I had initially thought about having the chicken and Trump face each other. But the more I thought about it, I think it's more appropriate that Trump would have his face in the business end of the chicken. So I think it's better this way. Anyway, if any of you are interested in that, just so you know, all my mugs come in 2 sizes. This is they come in 11 and 15 ounce. The $13.99 is for the 15 ounce, $12.99 for the 11 ounce. There are other mugs here. Of course, you got, this is my all-time favorite. Fuck Trump. There's others. Oh, I love this one. Just so you know. Orange is the new stupid. And I'll be adding more and more. Okay, that's it. Enough of the commercial for the Romano Report shop. I will put a link in the description below because I know some of you are really enjoying your Trump mug. So, anyways, yeah, I guess that's it. Ooh, what was I? There was a video that that I'm going to be doing later today. A little tease. I don't normally tease upcoming videos, but this one, I've had a lot of comments about it, so I want to address this. There is a rumor going out there, around there in the social media sphere, because I haven't really seen it reported in mainstream media. Maybe it has. I don't consume too much mainstream media because it would drive me freaking insane. But there is talk out there that this big, beautiful piece of shit bill that passed the House and is currently pending in the Senate contains a provision which would allow Trump to cancel future elections. I am going to be doing a video later today about that. I didn't want to stick it in another video because of the importance of it. So it's going to be a standalone video about that issue. So please, if you don't subscribe to this channel, please do so. Turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. And check back later for that video. Till then, thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.